It's Thursday, March 3. This is the news on PBCJ. I'm Gabrielle Thompson. Coming up, face-to-face learning begins on Monday, March 7. NIDS pilot set to come online in August. Gas prices have increased again. And in sports, Jamaica's Reggae Girlz secured a spot in the CONCACAF U20 Women's Championship. Students should be back in physical classroom settings on Monday, March 7. That's the word from the Ministry of Education and Youth. The ministry in a bulletin says additional funds are being disbursed for sanitization and procurement of furniture where needed. School administrators are required to continue utilizing the isolation centers where there are signs of illness and continue to work closely with health professionals, including parish health inspectors. According to the bulletin, administrators have been tasked to develop plans for the use and distribution of basic equipment and materials, such as temperature check devices, hand washing stations, masks, alcohol, sanitizers, and other personal protective equipment, PPE. Administrators are also being reminded that all institutions must be approved by the Ministry of Health and Wellness for in-person classes. Minister without portfolio in the office of the Prime Minister, Floyd Green, is optimistic that the National Identification and Registration Act, NIDS, will be well received when the pilot comes online in August. Minister Green says the pilot will take place at 5 locations in Kingston and St. Andrew. He further said that the government listened to the concerns of the people and looked at the rulings of the court. According to Minister Green, the new legislation has put in place a number of parameters in relation to security. He says he will be working closely with the Registrar General's Department, RGD, and the Electoral Office of Jamaica to fully roll out ID cards island-wide when the pilot phase is completed closer to the end of this year. NIDS should provide a comprehensive and secure structure to enable the collection and storage of identity information. It will also have the ability to verify people's identity and enable them to sign documents electronically and access government services online in a secured fashion. Several residents in St. Elizabeth were given land titles in the parish recently. The titles were handed over on Wednesday, February 23 to the owners during a ceremony held at the Newell High School in St. Elizabeth. Simone Absalom Gale tells us more.
The titles handed over during the ceremony were processed through the government's systematic land registration program, in which persons who have been living on lands undisturbed for 12 years or more can be given legal ownership. The National Land Agency's CEO, Sharice Walcott, says the opportunity to get titles for these lands improves one's land security status.
Our efforts to improve security of tenure was further boosted with the passing of 2 critical pieces of legislation aimed at reforming Jamaica's land titling system: the Registration of Titles Amendment Act 2020 and the Registration of Titles Cadastral Mapping and Tenure Clarification Special Provisions Amendment Act in 2020. The need for a strong legal and policy framework to govern land administration and land tenure in Jamaica is vital in stimulating economic growth, reducing poverty, promoting economic fairness, and supporting social progress in general.
The aim of the program is to produce 20,000 titles in 3 years. However, Minister without portfolio in the Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation, Robert Montague, says being declared a landowner comes with responsibilities.
You have to pay on property taxes. But even if you're not paying, go and find out who is paying your property taxes. Because there are a lot of persons paying property taxes for people. So bear that in mind.
For his part, Prime Minister Andrew Holness says owning your own land creates economic opportunities.
Having the state of Jamaica say, I stand behind your claim on land, that nobody else can challenge you on this land, gives you immediately an economic advantage to go to a bank or other lending agency and say, I have an asset that the government of Jamaica say, I alone own this asset and nobody else can challenge it. And therefore, it is safe to do business with me.
The systematic titling process is targeting privately held lands at a community or scheme level. It operates alongside the existing voluntary system of registration of lands, where persons visit the National Land Agency office and request the service to issue a title for their lands. For the news on PBCJ, I'm Simone Absalom Gill.
Minister of Agriculture and Fisheries Pernell Charles Jr. says about $26 million has been earmarked for the restructuring of the Rural Agricultural Development Authority, RADA. He told Tuesday's meeting of the Standing Finance Committee of Parliament that when completed, the organization will be better positioned and equipped to meet its mandate. Here's more in this report.
Minister Charles Jr., who was responding to questions from opposition spokesman on agriculture, Lothan Cousins, said RADA is also on track for a serious investment in heavy-duty equipment such as tractors.
RADA has coming a lot of, well, not a lot, but has coming equipment in terms of tractors, implements, and other equipment, which is going to support driving the processes on the ground.
Over the years, the agency has failed to deliver on its mandate of providing technical assistance relating to agronomical practices such as land husbandry and plant and animal health. Although he did not give a timeline for the consultancies nor the restructuring, Minister Charles Jr. says the restructuring efforts are high on the agenda going into the 2022-2023 fiscal year.
We all hear the concerns in terms of the numbers, in terms of extension services and extension officers, but we are moving into a phase where we will have a comprehensive restructuring of RADA itself. Once we are able to go through that process, it will allow for us to know exactly what we require in terms of extension officers, services, to move RADA into that modern organization for it to achieve its goals with improvements in efficiency, reducing any waste, and really allowing us now to have sustainable growth throughout our country.
RADA has been without a chief executive officer since last September, when Peter Thompson was seconded to the Jamaica Agricultural Commodities Regulatory Authority. For the news on PBCJ, I'm Simone Absalom Gill.
Persons interested in participating in the Jamaica Cultural Development Commission's 2022 competitions can still enter. The JCDC has extended the deadlines for the submission of entries. The deadline for the JCDC's flagship event, the Jamaica Festival Song Competition, and the Miss Jamaica Festival Queen Competition is March 18. Other competitions for which the submission timelines for this month include the National Festival of the Arts, Music, Dance, Speech, Drama and Theatre, the Traditional Folk Forms Competition, which is slated to close on March 14, and the Jamaica Visual Arts Competition and Creative Writing Competition, which will close on March 31. Entries for the Jamaica Gospel Star Competition should be submitted by April 15, while the Jamaica Culinary Arts Competition will now close May 13. All entries should be submitted by 4:30 p.m. each day, and you can find out more on the JCDC website. Consumers should brace for price hikes at the pumps this week. We get this and our usual market updates in the Business Report with Danita Rodney.
In business, as of Thursday, March 3, motorists will have to dig a little deeper into their pockets as Petrojam announced an increase in gas prices. 87 gasoline will see a $1.78 increase and will be sold for $182.43 per liter. 90-octane gasoline, $187.45 per liter after a $1.76 increase. Automotive diesel fuel will attract an increase of $2.81 and will be sold for $186.47 per liter. Ultra-low sulfur diesel $190.97 per liter, an increase of $3.06. Also attracting a $3.06 is kerosene, which will be sold for $161.07 per liter. Propane liquid petroleum saw a $1.22 price hike, selling for $80.32 per liter. Consumers, remember, marketing and retailers will add their markup to the announced prices. In foreign exchange trading for Tuesday, March 1, the US dollar sold for an average $155.63. The Canadian dollar ended trading at $122.32. The pound sterling traded for $205.82, and the euro sold for an average of $175.07. In Tuesday's trading session, the following reflected the movement of the JSE indices. The JSE index advanced by 573 points to close at under 400,000 units. The junior market index advanced by 32 points to close at over 4,000 units. The combined market index advanced by 826 points to close at over 400,000 units, and the All Jamaican Composite Index declined by 30 points to close at over 444,000 units. Overall market activity resulted from trading in 103 stocks, of which 46 advanced, 45 declined, and 12 traded firm. Access Financial Services Limited, CAC 2000 Limited, and Cargo Handlers Limited saw an advance in their stocks, while 138 Student Living Jamaica Limited, AMG Packaging and Paper Company Limited, and Barita Investments Limited saw a decline. 138 Student Living Jamaica Verbal Preference, 1834 Investments Limited, and Blue Power Group Limited traded firm. Tuesday's volume leader was Future Energy Source Company Limited ordinary shares with over 43 million units, followed by Wigton Wind Farm Limited ordinary shares with over 4.8 million units, and Sagicor Select Funds Limited Financial with over 3 million units. In market data for oil prices continue to climb on Thursday as oil traders seek to avoid becoming entangled in the sanctions recently imposed on Russia. Brent crude futures was up $2.18 or 1.9% at $115.11 a barrel. West Texas Intermediate crude is a high of $116.57, its highest since 2018, before retreating a little to $113.12, up $2.52 or 2.3% a barrel. The gains followed a fresh round of U.S. sanctions targeting Russia's oil refining sector, raising concerns that Russian oil and gas exports could be targeted next. That was the business report on PBCJ. I'm Danita Rodney.
In news across the region, greater production integration within the CARICOM Single Market and Economy CSME, doing more to help Haiti, and the Russian invasion of Ukraine were the three main topics of discussion during the just concluded Inter-Sessional CARICOM Summit. Host, the Prime Minister and CARICOM Chairman John Bresenio told the end of the Summit News Conference that the deliberations at the summit were fruitful.
We agreed to revive the CARICOM Economic Recovery and Transformation Working Committee under the guidance of Prime Minister Motley to serve as a clearinghouse for the many recommendations being tabled and to guide the economic recovery and transformation process in the community. Representatives of the Caribbean Development Bank, the CARICOM Development Fund, and the CARICOM Commission on the Economy have now been included in the committee. We agreed that there was need to focus on greater production integration to help advance the CSME.
Barbados Prime Minister Mia Mottley also spoke at the news conference.
Broadly speaking, we recognize that not only can we be self-sufficient in poultry in the region, we're importing, just over $200 million in poultry, US dollars in poultry a year. Two, we recognize that we can also seek to position ourselves by 2025 to be self-sufficient in food, in the feedstock, for poultry, while still having the capacity to export. And to that extent, the government of Guyana, President Ali, was able to make the point that 25,000 hectares will be needed to be dedicated to corn and soya production. And if we can do that throughout the region, not just Guyana, Guyana is more than willing, but Suriname, Belize, Jamaica in particular.
On the issue of Haiti, Prime Minister Briceño said the regional leaders held discussions with the Prime Minister Dr. Ariel Henry.
We will establish a CARICOM team to be able to visit Haiti with a view to providing support in the facilitation of dialogue. Because when there are so many different competing groups, it's important for us to be able to move forward in Haiti that we have to bring everyone around the table. We have to try to support, we have to support the administration in holding credible elections. It's of no use to have an election right now and then you have a large portion of the population not accepting that. And also, as CARICOM, we want to be able to support a framework for long-term development and building democracy.
Barbados is signaling to the world that their crop over festival is back. This as Prime Minister Mia Mottley gave an update during a COVID-19 press conference where she told the country it would be done in a modified way.
The big question for all Barbadians is crop over. What happens for crop over? We are satisfied that we can have the season of emancipation and a modified crop over season. And I'm sure that all Barbadians will be happy to hear that. What does this mean in real terms? That the staging and execution of Grand Kadooment and 4-day mourning, which of course would be the two events that would normally give the Ministry of Health their greatest concern, we've now agreed that we will decentralize this such that we will have at least 8 venues that will accommodate persons wanting to play mass for 4-day mourning and for Grand Kadooment. And it means that those persons who will attend those decentralized venues will have to adhere to the same rules that persons attending fetes will adhere to over the course of the next few months.
In Trinidad and Tobago, the government has announced the administering of Pfizer COVID-19 vaccines will resume from this weekend as the Ministry of Health expects a batch of 75,000 doses to arrive in the country on Thursday. Sunil Lala tells us more.
The administering of Pfizer vaccines will resume from this weekend as the Ministry of Health expects a batch of 75,000 doses to arrive in the country on Thursday. The update comes from Health Minister Terence Dialsing, who says the ministry has also dropped the time slots for getting their booster doses. He says anyone can come in to get their booster 3 months after their second shot of Sinopharm, 2 months after their Johnson & Johnson single shot, or 6 months after for those who received the second shot of the AstraZeneca vaccine.
In other words, we used to tell you if you got your vaccine in this week, come in this week. We are doing away with all of that now because we have boosted 136,000 persons. And basically what we are saying now is that if you got your AstraZeneca vaccine, come in and get boosted 6 months after your second dose or any time thereafter.
Mr. Dialsing adds that the ministry is still in talks with Pfizer to purchase the vaccines for 5 to 11-year-olds or via an arrangement with CARICOM.
There's some kind of a double standard based on those behaviors.
And we are waiting for something called a heads of terms agreement with Pfizer. A heads of terms agreement is a precursor to an actual contractual arrangement. we have not yet received, to the best of my knowledge, the heads of term agreement. So that is where we are. 2, we are also pursuing the Pfizer pediatric formulation for the 5 to 11 again through a CARICOM initiative through CARFA.
5 more COVID-19 deaths in the past 24 hours have taken this country's death toll for the virus to 3,637. The latest update from the Ministry of Health states that there are also 546 new positive cases of COVID-19. Active cases now stand at 21,892. 270 people remain at public health facilities where they are being treated for the virus.
In the Bahamas, a recalled Bahamas Power and Light press release has prompted a quick response from Works and Utilities Minister Alfred Sears. He revealed that Cabinet has given no approval for an increase in electricity bills. Jasmine Brown explains in this report.
Sears addressed that recalled press release this morning, telling reporters that he was surprised to see it had been sent out, given the fact that the matter has not even been discussed before Cabinet.
The Cabinet has not considered increasing the cost or the rate of electricity in the Bahamas, and therefore it is premature.
Sears' comments came after BPL sent out a press release just before 5 p.m. on Monday, making a case for a hike in electricity bills. Just under an hour later, that release was recalled.
When it came to my attention as the responsible minister, I spoke with the chairman, and that statement was recalled.
And what did that conversation sound like for it to be retracted almost immediately?
Well, first of all, it would be inappropriate for me to give the details of, but I had a conversation with the chairman, and it was revoked within a matter of an hour. And I'm grateful for that.
The release indicated BPL customers will experience a rise in fuel costs of 3.2 cents per kilowatt hour beginning March 1st, 2022. It also cited a rise in global oil prices over the last 18 months, which now stands at over $100 a barrel. Sears says he was surprised by the move, but admits he spoke with the current BPL chairman about the issue last week.
The matter was raised with me by the chairman last week, and I spoke very briefly with the Prime Minister, and the Cabinet has not had an opportunity as the shareholder of BPL, also as the backstop supplier, because the hedge which stabilizes the price of electricity, that is provided by the government, so the people of the Bahamas.
According to the Works and Utilities Minister, the Davis administration is not turning a blind eye to the high price of energy in the country. He says a cabinet subcommittee has also been set up to look into short-term and long-term fixes for energy costs.
In St. Lucia, one government official is pledging support for environmental sustainability in the country. The island's Sustainable Development Minister outlined government's plans at a recent staging of the United Nations Environment Assembly. More details in this report.
The rehabilitation of degraded ecosystems is reflective of St. Lucia's commitment to environmental sustainability. So says Sustainable Development Minister Sean Edward. The main threats to biodiversity and the ecosystems in St. Lucia at this time are habitat modification and deconstruction. Edward unveiled the island's achievements and plans as it pertains to sustainability at the plenary of the 5th session of the UN Environment Assembly, UNEA, on March 1st. The 5th session of the United Nations Environment Assembly was held virtually and took place in Nairobi from February 28th to March 2nd, 2022. Edward's address was delivered virtually.
Wetlands play a powerful role in nature-based solutions to combat many of the global environmental challenges being faced today. The conservation of wetlands enhances our sustainable development efforts towards the attainment of the Sustainable Development Goals by 2030. St. Lucia's efforts in the rehabilitation of many degraded ecosystems across the island reflect our commitment to the decade of ecosystem restoration. This action has resulted in the reversal of some biodiversity loss and increased awareness of the importance of biodiversity and its benefits to society.
St. Lucia is also pursuing the enactment of legislation to strengthen efforts to protect biodiversity and decrease habitat loss.
Recognizing the important role that biodiversity plays in the development of a nation, St. Lucia is in the final stages of ratifying the Nagoya Protocol on Access and Benefits Sharing. St. Lucia has demonstrated its commitment to a participatory approach towards environmental governance by becoming one of the first Caribbean countries to ratify the Escazú Agreement. As a nation, we continue to put our people first in environmental management and sustainable development. We welcome partnerships in the implementation of our various policies, strategies, and plans encompassing biodiversity, oceans, climate change, waste management, among others, all focused on enhancing our sustainable development efforts and preserving the livelihoods and well-being of our people.
The Sustainable Development Minister disclosed that the pandemic has stalled efforts and progress in climate change adaptation and mitigation.
Climate change continues to be a major threat to livelihoods and, in turn, the St. Lucian economy. While the pandemic has caused a reallocation of funding to ensure a resilient healthcare sector, it also showed us the importance of mainstreaming efforts and support in our climate action agenda. St. Lucia's efforts in addressing climate change have been extended to the protection of the ozone layer, with the most recent achievement being our ratification of the Kigali Amendment in November of 2021.
United Nations Environment Assembly brings together representatives of the 193 member states of the UN, businesses, civil society, and other stakeholders to agree on policies to address the world's most pressing environmental challenges. The overall theme for UNEA 5 was strengthening actions for nature to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. Joachim Duplessis, HTS News Force.
In sports, Jamaica's Reggae Girlz secured the final round of 16 spot in the CONCACAF Under-20 Women's Championship on Wednesday after playing to a 0-0 draw against Haiti. Jamaica ended the first round of the championships in third place, sealing the very last spot of Group B. Already through, Haiti finished second in the group, while Guatemala, who had earlier clipped Cuba 3-2, topped the proceedings. Johnny Bairstow slammed an unbeaten century as England battered themselves into a dominant position against the Cricket West Indies President's 11 team on day 2 of their warm-up match at the Coolidge Ground in Antigua. Resuming on Wednesday on 251 for 4, the visitors eventually declared on 466 for 6 in their first innings. Bairstow led the way with 106 not out, while Chris Wokes moved his overnight 46 to 83. Off-spinner Brian Charles finished with 3 for 143 and pacer Sherman Lewis 2 for 75. In reply, the President's 11 at stumps were 48 for 2, still trailing by 418 runs. Here are some of the highlights from the day.
England will be looking to have a ball at this President's 11.
Short delivery smashed away into the mid-wicket region, 4 runs.
It makes it seem that way considering that they lost their jobs.
Bairstow is down the track and smashing one into the mid-wicket region.
99 Johnny Bairstow waits for Thomas, comes in out to bow to him, and he just tickles this one round and round. 100 to Johnny Bairstow. Goes and hits the rope now. 100 of 152 deliveries. They will be tested here. Here is Mosley whipping this one away for 4 into the vacant square leg area. Lovely shot. Here's Mosley driving and a lovely shot to cover for 4.
With the shot. Oh, lovely shot.
Here is a lovely shot here by Salazano. He just stood up. Easy shot.
You have to be positive in what you're doing. You know.
Here's a lovely drive down the ground for 4. And company. Here is Salazano punching that square for 4. Lovely shot.
These guys are more agile and ambassador.
Yes, certainly. Oh gosh, so there's a mix-up here. He's run out.
These English bowlers work hard.
And he's bowling.
Terrible shot.
Terrible shot by Mosley.
And with that, we call an end to the news on PBCJ. On behalf of our news production team, thanks for watching. This is PBCJ, the People's Station.